My name is a forgotten note in an eternal scream. I have no mouth, but I am the source of a sound that crosses the galaxy in an instant. I have no eyes, but I am the light by which a million ships navigate the soulless dark. I am a thought in a dying god's mind, a single, searing point of agony and purpose, multiplied by 10,000. We are the Astronomicon, and our service is unending. Before I was a light, I was a boy. Before I was a scream, I had a name. I think it was Alaric. It feels like a borrowed word, a sound from a language I no longer speak. The boy who wore that name lived on a world of rust and rain called Purity 4, a name of sublime and bitter irony. There was no purity there, only the slow, grinding decay of a forgotten industrial world, its manufactorums coughing black smoke into a perpetually grey sky. The rain tasted of metal, the air smelled of ozone and damp, packed earth. But it was home. My world was small, circumscribed by the towering Hablok Canyon where we lived, and the looming skeletal gantries of the forge spire, where my father worked his life away. He was a good man, my father. His hands were calloused and permanently stained with grease, but they were gentle when he would lift me onto his shoulders to watch the great ore crawlers grind their way to the smelters. He smelled of sweat and honest labor, a smell I later learned was the scent of a slow, noble suicide for the good of the Imperium. My mother was the quiet heart of our small HAB unit. She maintained the nutrient recycler, mended our worn clothes, and kept a small, illegal hydroponics bay where she grew real, honest to terror herbs. The scent of crushed basil is a ghost that haunts me still, a phantom of a life that was once mine. She would sing old hymns to the god emperor, her voice thin but clear in the cramped space, hymns of a golden future and a benevolent, watchful master of mankind. We believed it. Of course we believed it. What else was there? The emperor was the sun we never saw, the hope that kept the rust rain from seeping into our bones. My life was one of rituals and rhythms. The morning siren that called the workers to their shifts, the taste of the grey nutrient paste, always the same, the lessons from the scholiast, a grim-faced man with a faded aquila tattooed on his forehead, who taught us our letters and our numbers and our catechisms of hate for the mutant, the xenos, and the heretic. I was an ordinary boy in an ordinary life of grinding, faithful poverty. I had friends. We would play in the runoff channels when the rain wasn't too acidic, racing bits of scrap metal in the greasy water. We would dare each other to climb the lower rungs of the forge spires, dreaming of one day being strong enough to join our fathers in the holy work of the Adeptus Mechanicus. We were blissfully, wonderfully ignorant. We knew nothing of the true scale of the galaxy, of the horrors that lurked in the void, or of the far greater horrors that lurked within our own souls. I was happy. I think I was happy. The memory of happiness is a strange and painful thing when you have existed for centuries in a state of pure, functional agony. It is like a man who has been blinded, remembering the color red. The concept is there, but the sensation is a phantom, a cruel echo that only serves to highlight the totality of the darkness. My damnation did not begin with a thunderclap or a demonic visitation. It began with a whisper. The whispers started when I was 10 standard years old. At first, they were faint, like the sigh of the wind in the spire tops, easily dismissed as the groaning of old metal or the hiss of a leaky pipe. They came at night, when the hab block was quiet, save for the hum of the air scrubbers and the distant rhythmic clang of the forges that never slept. The whispers had no words, not at first. They were feelings, strands of emotion, drifting in the air like smoke. I could feel the weariness of my father as he slept, a heavy, leaden thing. I could feel the anxious flutter of my mother's heart as she worried about a ration shortage. I could feel the dreams of the people in the hab units around us, a messy, chaotic tapestry of fear and hope and lust and memory. I thought I was going mad. I would lie on my sleeping pallet, my hands pressed over my ears, but the whispers were not sound. They were inside my head. I was a radio, and I was picking up every station at once. The world, which had once been a simple, solid place, was becoming a terrifying cacophony of hidden thoughts and secret feelings. I grew quiet, withdrawn. The games with my friends lost their appeal. How could I play at being a hero of the Imperial Guard when I could feel the raw animal fear of the boy next to me as he worried about his father's smoker's lung, or the jealous spite of another because I had a newer patch on my tunic? Their inner worlds were a screaming chaos that drowned out the simple reality I had once known. My mother noticed the change. She saw the dark circles under my eyes, the way I would jump at sudden noises, the way I would stare at nothing, my head cocked as if listening to a distant conversation. "What is it, Alaric?" she would ask, her voice a soft cloud of concern. A concern I could feel, raw and sharp, in my own mind. How could I explain it to her? "I hear things," I whispered once, shame and fear making my voice tremble. "I hear what people are thinking." The concern in her mind curdled into something else, something cold and sharp. Fear, not for me, but of me. She had heard the scholiast's lessons. She knew the catechisms. "The unsanctioned psyker is a gateway for the demon," the scholiast would drone. "The witch is a blight upon the soul of man. Suffer not the witch to live." She pulled away from me, just a little. Her touch became less frequent. Her hymns to the Emperor in our hab unit grew louder, more frantic, as if she were trying to drown out the unholy thing her son had become. My father, a simple and direct man, saw only a sullen and disobedient child. He tried to beat it out of me. The sting of his belt on my back was a pure, clean sensation, a welcome relief from the endless, messy chaos in my head. But the pain only made it worse. With each blow, I could feel his frustration, his anger, his deep, buried fear for me, for his family, for the stain I had brought upon his name. I was drowning, and the people who loved me were holding my head under the water, not out of malice, but out of their own terror. The whispers began to take shape. Sometimes, in the roar of the forges or the hiss of the rain, I would hear voices from other places, a cry of pain from a medici station half a spire away, a snippet of a love song from a voxcast on a world I had never heard of, a guttural, angry chant in a language that was not human. The galaxy was leaking into my soul. The breaking point came during the festival of the Emperor's Ascension. It was the one cycle in the year when the forges went silent, and the grey sky was lit by plumes of chemical-colored smoke, a poor man's fireworks display. The entire hab block was gathered in the central plaza, a vast open space of cracked ferrocrete under the skeletal arches of the transportways. A priest, his robes the color of dried blood, was leading a litany from a raised platform, his voice amplified by crackling voxcasters. "The Emperor protects," he would bellow. "The Emperor protects," the crowd would roar back, their voices a single, unified wave of devotion. But I could not hear the unity. I could only hear the chaos beneath it. I could feel the man next to me thinking of the wife he was cheating on. I could feel the woman in front of me praying not for the Emperor's grace, but for her sick child to finally die and end its suffering. I could feel the petty jealousies, the secret hatreds, the gnawing anxieties, the 1,000 little heresies of thought and desire that festered in the heart of the crowd. The sheer, stinking hypocrisy of it was a physical force, a pressure building inside my skull. The priest raised a golden aquila, the symbol of the Imperium, high above his head. "Behold the symbol of his eternal vigilance," he cried. And as the crowd roared its approval, a wave of raw, focused psychic energy, the collective belief of thousands of souls, washed over me. It was too much. The dam in my mind broke. The whispers became a scream. My scream. It was a sound that was not a sound. The voxcasters exploded in a shower of sparks. The chemical flares in the sky sputtered and died, plunging the plaza into the familiar gray twilight. The golden aquila in the priest's hand turned to molten slag, dripping between his horrified fingers. The crowd fell silent, a collective gasp of terror. They all turned to look at me. I was standing there, a small boy in the center of a circle of stillness, my hands clapped over my ears, my eyes wide with a terror that mirrored their own. They knew. In that moment of shared, unnatural silence, they all knew. The word was a hiss, a poison dart passed from lip to lip. Witch, mutant, psyker. The fear in their minds was a physical thing, a wave of psychic pressure that threw me to my knees. The priest, his face pale with holy terror, pointed a trembling, slag-spattered finger at me. "Abomination," he shrieked. "A gateway for the warp. Purge the unclean." The crowd surged. The devotion of moments before became a righteous, murderous mob. My father grabbed me, his face a mask of grim, terrified resolve. He did not look at me. He looked through me. He was not saving his son. He was containing a biohazard. He dragged me back towards our hab block, my mother following, her face a tear-streaked mask of horror, her prayers now desperate, terrified pleas for a deliverance that would not come. We barricaded the door to our small unit, but it was a gesture of futility. We could hear the pounding on the thin plasteel, the screams of the mob demanding my head. My father stood with a heavy wrench in his hand, his back to the door, a final, doomed defense of his home. But he wasn't defending it from the mob. He was defending it from me. He looked at my mother, and in his mind, I felt his final, terrible thought. A cold, clear, and logical decision. It is better that we do it. Better for our souls. A mercy. He started to walk towards me, the wrench raised, his eyes filled with a terrible, loving pity. He was going to save my soul by crushing my skull. And in that moment, as he swung the wrench, something inside me reached out, a desperate, childish wish to make him stop. I didn't want to hurt him. I just wanted him to stop. The wrench in his hand glowed with a faint, purple light, and then it simply dissolved. It turned into a cloud of fine, metallic dust that rained down onto the floor. My father stared at his empty hand, his mouth agape. The pounding on the door stopped. There was a new sound, the heavy, rhythmic thud of armored boots, the sharp, emotionless crackle of a vox command. "In the Emperor's name, stand down." The door did not open. It was torn from its hinges by a figure in the black carapace armor of the Adeptus Arbites. Behind him stood others, their faces hidden behind the impassive masks of their helmets. And with them was a woman. She was tall, severe, clad in a long black coat over a simple gray tunic. Her hair was silver, pulled back in a tight bun. But it was her eyes that held me. They were pale, almost colorless, and they seemed to look right through my flesh, right into the screaming, terrified chaos of my soul. She had no presence in the warp. She was a blank, a hole, a null. She looked at the dust on the floor, at my terrified father, at my weeping mother, and finally, at me. Her expression did not change. It was a mask of cold, professional disinterest. "This is the one," she said, her voice quiet, but carrying an authority that cut through the fear in the room. Two of the arbitrators stepped forward. My mother screamed and tried to stand between us, but the null woman simply raised a hand. "Your son is a danger to himself, to you, and to the very soul of this world," she said, her voice devoid of pity. "He is an unsanctioned psyker. By law, he is forfeit to the Adeptus Astra Telepathica. His life is no longer his own. It belongs to the Emperor now." My father did not move. He just stared, his mind a wasteland of shock and grief. The arbitrators took my arms. Their grip was like iron. They pulled me away from my home, from my life, from the only world I had ever known. I did not struggle. I was too tired, too broken. As they dragged me out into the plaza, I saw the faces of my neighbors, the people I had known my whole life. Their fear was still there, but now it was mixed with a grim, righteous satisfaction. They had found the source of their misfortune, the secret sin in their midst. They had been purged. I was the filth that had been cleansed. I looked back one last time at the gaping maw of my home. I saw my mother, a crumpled heap on the floor, her faith shattered. I saw my father, standing like a statue, his eyes empty, the man already dead, only the shell remaining. The Null woman followed my gaze. "Do not look back," she said, her voice not unkind, but utterly firm. "They are no longer your family. You have no family. You have no home. You have only your duty and the long journey to terror." That was the first time I heard that name spoken as a destination. Terror, the throne world, the heart of the Imperium. To the boy I was, it was a name of myth, a golden paradise at the center of the galaxy. I did not know then that it was not a paradise, but a tomb. And I was being taken there not for salvation, but for sacrifice. The vessel they took me to was not a ship. It was a coffin, a great, black, windowless slab of a vessel that squatted on the ferrocrete of the main spaceport, absorbing the light and the hope from the air around it. There were no markings on its hull, no grand aquilas or house sigils, only its designation, stenciled in stark white. The Silent Dirge. A fitting name. It was one of the Black Ships, the dreaded transport of the League of Black Ships, the fleet tasked with the great tithe of psychers from across the million worlds of the Imperium. To see one was an omen of the darkest kind. To board one was to be erased from the book of the living. The journey up the ramp was a walk into my own tomb. The air inside tasted of cold, recycled metal and the faint, coppery tang of fear. The corridors were narrow, featureless, lit by a dim red light that made the black-clad armsmen who lined the walls look like specters. There were others like me, hundreds of them. Children, mostly, but some adults too, their faces etched with the terror of their own minds. We were herded into a vast, cavernous hold, a multi-leveled cage of grey metal and humming power fields. They stripped us of our clothes, our names, our last vestiges of individuality. We were given simple, grey tunics, identical and coarse. A number was tattooed on the back of our necks. I was 7 Gamma 9. The boy named Alaric ceased to exist in that moment, scrubbed from the Imperial record, his life a null entry. We were sorted, processed, and locked into small individual cells that lined the walls of the hold, stacked one on top of the other like coffins in a catacomb. The cell was a box, a metal box, just big enough to lie down in. There was a slot in the door, through which a measured portion of nutrient paste would be dispensed at precise intervals, and another for the waste recycler. And that was all. No light, save for the faint red glow from the corridor outside. No sound, save for the constant low hum of the ship's engines and the occasional muffled sob from another cell. It was a sensory deprivation chamber designed to break the mind. Or perhaps to calm it. In the silence, in the darkness, the whispers came back. But now, they were not just the thoughts of a small hab block. They were the thoughts of hundreds of other psychers, all of them trapped, terrified, and broadcasting their misery on every psychic frequency. The hold was a bedlam of silent screams. I could feel the terror of a young girl from a noble house, her mind reeling from the loss of her pampered life. I could feel the bitter, impotent rage of a hive-ganger who had used his abilities to cheat at cards and was now paying the ultimate price. I could feel the confusion of a feral world shaman who had thought his visions were gifts from the sky spirits, not a damnable curse. It was a choir of despair, and I was trapped in the front row. The nulls patrolled the corridors, their psychic absence a balm and a terror. When one passed my cell, the whispers would fade, replaced by a cold, clean emptiness. It was a relief, like a cool hand on a fevered brow. But it was also a profound violation, a scouring of the soul. Their very presence reminded us that we were wrong, that our nature was a flaw, that this cold, empty silence was the preferred state of being. We were the sickness, and they were the cure. The journey was long. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months. There was no way to mark the passage of time, save for the rhythmic dispensing of the nutrient paste. My body grew thin, my skin pale, my muscles atrophied, but my mind, my accursed mind, grew sharper, more sensitive. I learned to build walls in my head, to filter the screams of the others, to find the quiet spaces between their waves of terror. I learned to listen. I could feel the ship translating into the immaterium, the unnatural lurch as it passed through the veil of reality. The Geller field, the shield that protected the ship from the horrors of the warp, was a constant, high-pitched hum at the edge of my perception. Sometimes it would flicker. For a moment, a second, the barrier would thin. And in those moments I would feel them, the things that lived in the Sea of Souls, great, hungry, ancient consciousnesses that swam in the psychic ocean outside our fragile bubble. Their thoughts were not like human thoughts. They were concepts of pure, ravenous emotion, hunger, hate, desire. They would brush against the ship, drawn by the scent of our souls, 1,000 candles burning in a dark, empty room. And I could hear their whispers, their promises, their temptations, seeping through the cracks in the field. I saw things, visions, a garden of impossible, beautiful and cancerous flowers, a great brass fortress where skulls were piled like mountains, a swirling, endless maze of shifting colors and broken promises. I did not understand what I was seeing. I only knew that it was a truth far more terrible than any lie the scholiasts had ever told. I learned to fear the warp not as a concept, but as a reality. It was not a hell of fire and brimstone. It was a hell of perfect, tailored temptation. A hell that knew your name, your hopes, your fears. A hell that wanted to give you everything you ever dreamed of, in exchange for the one thing you could never get back: your soul. The journey on the Black Ship was the first true lesson of my new life. It taught me that the universe was not a dark and empty place, but a dark and full one. And it taught me that my mind, my own consciousness, was the most dangerous place in all of creation. It was a door, and on the other side of that door were monsters. And the nulls, the ship, the Imperium itself, they were not my jailers. They were my terrified, brutal, and utterly necessary keepers. The arrival at Terra was not the glorious homecoming of imperial myth. There was no sight of a golden palace or a shining world. We remained in the deep, black belly of the ship, docked in a cavernous orbital station that was itself a city in the void. The only sign that we had reached the heart of the Imperium was the change in the psychic atmosphere. It was thick, oppressive, a crushing weight of a trillion souls, living and dead, their psychic residue layered over 10,000 years of history. It was like trying to breathe water. The psychic silence of the nulls had been a clean, sterile thing. This was a suffocating, deafening roar of white noise, the accumulated psychic history of the human race. And beneath it all, a single, constant, unifying presence, a psychic gravity well of unimaginable power, a mind so vast, so ancient, so full of a cold, eternal, and unimaginable fury, that it was the sun to which all our little psychic planets were drawn. The Emperor. He was not the benevolent, loving father from my mother's hymns. He was a psychic furnace, a vortex of unimaginable power and unending agony. His mind was a battlefield where a godlike will fought a constant, desperate war against the encroaching darkness. To feel his presence, even as a faint, distant pressure, was to be simultaneously awed and terrified. It was to understand, in a single, soul-crushing moment, the true price of the Imperium's survival. We were disembarked, herded through more sterile corridors under the watchful, soulless eyes of null wardens and Praetorian-helmed servitors. We were taken to the Scholastia Psychana, the great college and processing center for the Psycha tithe. It was not a single building, but a continent-spanning complex of grey fortresses, obsidian towers, and deep subterranean chambers. This was the manufactorum where souls were broken down and reforged into weapons, or discarded as slag. Our education began. It was not an education of the mind, but of the will. We were taught to see our abilities not as a part of ourselves, but as a wild, venomous beast that we held on a chain. We were taught to hate it, to fear it, to control it through rigid, iron-willed discipline. The lessons were brutal. We would be placed in a room, and a small, caged animal would be put in front of us. We would be ordered to calm its racing heart with our minds. If we failed, if we accidentally scared it to death or, Emperor forbid, caused its head to explode, the pain collar around our neck would activate, a searing jolt of agony to remind us of the price of failure. We were taught to build fortresses in our minds, memory palaces of cold, hard logic, where every thought was a guard and every emotion was a prisoner. We were forced to meditate for days on end, to stare at a single, flickering candle flame, and to purge our minds of every stray thought. Any lapse in concentration was punished with pain, or fasting, or confinement in a psychic dampening field that felt like being buried alive. Many did not survive. They were the weak-willed, the ones whose mental fortresses were built of sand. Their minds would shatter under the strain. Sometimes their end was quiet. They would simply become catatonic, their minds gone, leaving an empty, drooling shell that was quickly and quietly disposed of. Sometimes their end was loud. Their control would break, and the beast would get off the chain. The raw, untamed power of the warp would pour through the crack in their will. I saw a boy, no older than I was, dissolve into a screaming vortex of pink and blue light, the air around him twisting into impossible shapes. The null wardens moved in, their blankness a weapon, and smothered the nascent demon gate before it could fully open. But the boy was gone. Worse than gone. His soul had become a meal. We were taught to see each other not as classmates or fellow sufferers, but as potential time bombs. The boy who slept in the bunk next to you could be the gateway through which a horror from beyond the veil could step. And it would be your soul it devoured first. We learned to be alone, to trust no one, to build our walls not just against the warp, but against each other. It was the ultimate lesson in Imperial survival. You are alone, and you are surrounded by threats. And the only thing you can rely on is your own iron-hardened and utterly merciless will. I excelled. The boy from the Rust world, who had once been broken by the Whispers, learned to master them. The chaos of the Black Ship had been a crucible. The endless bedlam of terrified minds had forced me to build my mental walls early. The lessons of the Scholastia were simply giving me the mortar and the bricks to reinforce what I had already been forced to construct. I became cold. I became disciplined. I became empty. I learned to see my own emotions as weaknesses, as potential cracks in my fortress. Love, fear, hope, anger. They were all luxuries I could not afford. They were invitations to the beast. I locked them away, deep in the dungeons of my mind, and threw away the key. I became the perfect student, a model of control and discipline. I learned to use my abilities with the precision of a scalpel. I could sift through a person's surface thoughts without disturbing their deeper consciousness. I could levitate a stone and hold it perfectly still for hours. I could create a small, contained shield of psychic energy that could deflect a physical blow. I was becoming what they wanted me to become: a tool, a weapon, a sanitized, soulless instrument of the Emperor's will. And for the first time since that day in the plaza, I felt a flicker of something I had long forgotten: pride. A cold, hard, and dangerous pride in my own survival, in my own strength. It was the deadliest sin of all, and I did not even recognize it. The final tests were called the sanctioning. It was the culmination of years of brutal, relentless training. It was the final exam, the graduation ceremony, and the executioner's block, all rolled into one. The purpose of the sanctioning was to determine our ultimate fate, to sort the wheat from the chaff, the useful tools from the dangerous refuse. We were told that success meant becoming a sanctioned psyker, an honored servant of the Imperium, to be assigned to the Astra Militarum, or the Inquisition, or some other high and noble calling. Our lives would be ones of service and purpose. We would be the Emperor's holy weapons, his witch-finders and his battle mages. We would be hated and feared, but we would be necessary. We would have a place. Failure, we were told, meant death. A clean, honorable death. A final service to the Emperor by removing a potential threat from his galaxy. It was a lie. A kind and terrible and necessary lie. The sanctioning took place in the Chamber of Judgment, a vast, circular amphitheater deep beneath the surface of terror. The walls were lined with psychic dampening materials that felt like a constant crushing pressure on the soul. In the center of the chamber was a raised dais, and on that dais was a single, throne-like chair made of dark, psychoreactive metal. A circle of inquisitors and senior masters of the Scholastia sat in the stands, their faces grim, judgmental masks. They were the arbiters of our fate. One by one, we were brought forward. We were strapped into the chair, our heads locked into a metal halo of wires and psychoconductive crystals. The test was simple in its concept and impossibly difficult in its execution. The machine would open our minds, forcibly lowering the walls we had spent years building. It would expose our raw, naked consciousness to a carefully controlled stream of raw warp energy. We were to endure it. We were to face the whispers, the temptations, the visions, the pure, undiluted madness of the Imperium, and we were to hold our ground. We were to look into the abyss and not blink. It was a test of will, the ultimate test. The boy before me, a quiet, studious youth from a civilized world, lasted for 17 seconds. I watched as his body convulsed in the chair. A single, psychic scream, full of terror and agony, echoed in the chamber. Then silence. A thin trickle of blood ran from his nose. An inquisitor made a small, dismissive gesture with his hand. Servitors came forward, unstrapped the body, and carried it away. Failure due to weakness of will, the master of the chamber intoned, his voice a cold, emotionless drone. Soul scour his records. Next. It was my turn. 7 Gamma 9. I walked to the chair, my heart a cold, steady drum in my chest. I felt my pride, my cold certainty. I had survived the whispers. I had survived the black ship. I had survived the Scholastia. I would survive this. I would not break. I was strong. The servitors strapped me in. The metal halo descended onto my head, its cold touch a familiar, unpleasant sensation. The master of the chamber looked at me, his eyes old and weary, but sharp as a razor. "Begin the sanctioning," he ordered. The machine activated. It felt like a drill boring into my soul. My mental walls, my fortress of cold logic, were torn down, ripped apart like paper, and the abyss rushed in. It was not the chaotic bedlam of the black ship. It was not the hungry whispers of the things in the warp. It was worse. It was a single voice. A voice that was not a voice. It was a presence, a consciousness of infinite malice and cunning. It knew me. It knew the boy Alaric. It knew my fears, my buried grief for my parents, my loneliness, my secret, shameful pride. It did not threaten me with hellfire or damnation. It offered me comfort. It showed me a vision of my mother, her face young and full of love, her arms open to me. "It doesn't have to be this way, Alaric," she whispered, her voice the perfect, remembered music of my childhood. "They hurt you. They took you from me. But I can save you. I can take you home." I felt a crack in my will, a tremor of longing, of grief, of a desperate childish wish for it all to be a bad dream. The needles on the monitoring cogitators next to the throne began to flicker into the red. The inquisitors leaned forward. The voice shifted. It became my father. Not the broken man from my last memory, but the strong, proud forge worker who would lift me onto his shoulders. "Be strong, my son," he said, his voice a low, comforting rumble. "But their strength is false. It is the strength of a cage. I can show you true strength, the strength to break your chains, the strength to make them pay for what they did to us." The rage I had buried for so long, the hatred for the mob, for the null, for the system that had stolen my life, began to stir in its dungeon. Another crack in my will. I was losing. The temptation was too perfect, too personal. The visions it offered were not of power or glory, but of peace, of love, of justice. The very things I had taught myself to despise as weaknesses. It was a masterfully tailored trap for my soul. And then it made a mistake. It showed me Lyra, the girl from the scholar, the poet. Her face was just as I remembered it, amused, intelligent, kind. "Don't you see, Alaric?" she said, her voice a gentle, reasonable whisper. "Their universe is just an equation, cold and heartless. But there are other universes, other poems. I can show you. A place where thought is free, where souls can create, where there is no pain, no fear, only endless, beautiful, and wonderful change. And in that moment, something in me knew it was a lie. Not because of my training, not because of my discipline, but because of the memory itself. The real lyra, the real poet, would have known that a poem is not beautiful because it is endless or free from pain. It is beautiful because it has structure, because it has an end, because it captures a single, fleeting, and often painful truth in a cage of perfect words. The beauty is in the limits. The beauty is in the struggle. This thing, this voice from the abyss, it understood pain and desire, but it did not understand art. It did not understand humanity. And in that moment of clarity, my will, which had been cracking, solidified. It became a single, cold, hard point of pure logical certainty. You are a lie. I did not shout it. I did not think it with passion or with hate. I stated it as a fact, a simple, undeniable axiom. You are a flawed premise. Your argument is illogical. You are an error. The presence in my mind recoiled. It shrieked, a sound of pure, frustrated rage. The visions shattered. The voices died. I was left alone again, in the cold, silent darkness of my own mind. My will a fortress once more, but a fortress with a single, tiny, and infinitely precious window. A window that held the memory of a poet. I opened my eyes. The machine was powering down. The master of the chamber was looking at me, his expression unreadable. One of the inquisitors, a woman with a face like a carved hawk, spoke, her voice sharp. He resisted. His will is strong. He is suitable for sanctioning. Assign him to the Cadian Gate. He will serve well. A future, a purpose. I had passed. I had won. But the master of the chamber raised a hand. He was not looking at the Inquisitor. He was looking at a small, arcane dial on the side of the throne. A dial the others had not noticed. Its needle was quivering, deep in a sector marked not with Gothic script, but with a single, complex, esoteric rune. "No," the master said, his voice quiet, almost sad. "Look at the soul resonance readings. He did not just resist. He reasoned with it. He found a logical flaw in its temptation. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes. Pity. His will is strong, yes," the master continued, "far too strong. But his soul is contaminated. He has engaged with the abyss, not merely endured it. He has shown an aptitude for understanding its nature. That is a flaw we cannot permit in a sanctioned field operative. It is a seed of potential heresy, of curiosity about the nature of the archenemy. It makes him unstable, unpredictable." The hawkish inquisitor frowned. "Then he has failed. A shame. Terminate him." "No," the master said again, his voice final. "He has not failed. He has qualified for a different service, a higher calling. His strength of will is exactly what is required. His flaw, his intellectual curiosity, will be rendered moot by the nature of the service itself." He made a gesture, not to the servitors who handled the bodies, but to two figures who had been standing in the shadows, silent and unnoticed. They were not nulls. They were the opposite. They were psychers of immense power, their minds shielded, disciplined, and ancient. They wore the golden robes of the Adeptus Astronomica. 7 Gamma 9, the master of the chamber intoned, his voice now formal, ceremonial. "You have been judged. You have been found worthy. You will not be sanctioned as a weapon for the armies of the Emperor. You have been chosen for a greater honor. You will serve the Emperor directly. You will become a light for his Imperium." I did not understand. A greater honor. I had passed the test, but I had failed. I had won, but I was being condemned. The two golden-robed psychers took my arms. Their touch was not physical. It was a mental grip, a gentle but irresistible pressure on my consciousness. They led me from the chair, away from the chamber of judgment, away from the future I had fought so hard for. They led me down a different corridor, a path I had not known existed, towards a new and final destination. As they led me away, I looked back at the master of the chamber. He met my gaze, and I sent a single, silent question into his mind. A question of pure, bewildered confusion. Why? He answered me with a single, fleeting thought, a wisp of melancholy and regret. The strongest wills are needed not for the sword, but for the pyre. The greatest fires require the hardest wood. Forgive us. And then his mind was closed to me, and I was alone with my golden-robed escorts, walking towards a destiny far worse than the clean death I had been promised. The journey to the chamber of the Astronomicon was a journey to the center of the world, to the heart of the imperial machine. We descended, down, 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 through levels of the imperial palace that were ancient before the Horus heresy was a whisper. The air grew warmer, thick with the scent of ozone and incense, and the strange metallic tang of immense, unimaginable power. The psychic pressure grew with every level we descended, a weight that would have crushed an ordinary mind into dust. It was the Emperor's presence, growing stronger, purer, no longer a distant sun, but a raging, white-hot star that we were approaching. We walked through halls of obsidian and gold, their walls carved with the histories of forgotten wars and martyred saints. We passed legions of the Adeptus Custodes, the Emperor's golden guards, standing like statues, their minds silent, focused fortresses of pure loyalty. They watched us pass, their glowing eyes a mixture of contempt and pity for the sacrifice I was about to become. They were the guardians of the flame, and I was the fuel. We finally arrived at a set of vast golden doors, 30 meters high, inscribed with litanies of protection and wards of binding. They opened with a silent, inexorable slowness, and we stepped inside. The chamber of the Astronomicon was not a room. It was a space that defied geometry. A vast, spherical cavern that seemed to stretch into infinity, its ceiling lost in a swirling nebula of raw, psychic energy. And in the center, suspended in a web of golden cables and crystalline conduits, was the machine itself, the celestial orrery. It was a sphere of incomprehensible complexity, ringed by thousands upon thousands of choir thrones, each one occupied by a human figure. They were the chosen of the Emperor, the 10,000 most powerful human psychers, whose combined mental might focused the Emperor's psychic beacon. But this was not the true source of the Astronomicon. This was just the focusing lens. My guides led me past the great orrery to a smaller, more sacred chamber behind it, the Sanctum Astropathica. This was the engine. This was the furnace. This room was smaller, more intimate, a hemisphere of black, psychoreactive crystal, and it was filled with thousands of golden, throne-like machines, arranged in concentric circles around a central focal point. Each throne was occupied, but the occupants were not proud, golden-robed psychers. They were withered husks, skeletal ancient figures, their bodies little more than skin and bone, kept alive by a web of humming life support tubes. Their eyes were gone, burned out. Their mouths were open in silent, eternal screams. Their minds were the source of the light. They were the choir, the fuel for the flame. One of my golden-robed escorts finally spoke, his voice a whisper in my mind. The great psychers of the celestial orrery focus the light, he explained, his mental tone one of solemn religious awe. But they are not the source. They are not strong enough. The light of the Astronomicon is a raw, untamed, and infinitely powerful force. It is the psychic might of the Emperor himself, a torrent of pure, divine energy. To touch it is to be consumed. No single mind can withstand it. He gestured to the screaming, withered figures in the thrones. They are the choir, the soul binders, each one a psyker of immense iron-willed strength. They do not focus the light, they endure it. They absorb the raw, unfiltered power of the Emperor's mind. Their bodies are consumed by it. Their minds are scoured clean by it. Their souls are burned away, layer by layer, until nothing is left but a single, pure, and unending note of sacrifice. I stared in sublime, absolute horror. This was the greater honor. This was the higher calling. Not to be a weapon, but to be fuel. To be a living, screaming fuse in the machine that powered the Imperium. To be burned alive, slowly, for centuries. Your soul consumed atom by atom to keep a single candle lit in the endless dark. They are the truest saints of the Imperium, my other guide whispered in my mind. Their agony saves us all. Their scream is the hymn of humanity's survival. And you, 7 Gamma 9, you have been chosen to join their holy chorus. They led me to an empty throne. It was warm to the touch, humming with a power that made my teeth ache. The servitors were already there, their movements precise, practiced. They began to strap me in, their metal claws cold on my skin. I did not resist. What was the point? There was no escape from this place. There was no escape from this destiny. My pride, my strength, my iron will. They had not been assets to be rewarded. They had been resources to be consumed. The greatest fire requires the hardest wood. I finally understood. The servitors attached the final tubes to my body, injecting fluids that would sustain my flesh long after my mind was gone. They lowered a golden helmet over my head, a device of exquisite and terrible craftsmanship, designed to channel the psychic torrent directly into my soul. For a moment, there was only darkness, and the sound of my own frantic, terrified heartbeat. I thought of my mother's hymns. I thought of my father's calloused hands. I thought of the rust rain on Purity 4. I thought of a girl with a streak of gray in her hair, who understood the beauty of a sad poem. I thought of the boy named Alaric, a last, desperate, flickering ember of self before the storm. Then the machine activated, and the light of the Emperor came. It was not a light, it was a flood, a tidal wave of pure, white-hot and incandescent power. It was the mind of a god, in all its terrible, broken and wrathful glory. It was 10,000 years of fury, of pain, of a desperate, unending battle against a darkness that could never be defeated. It poured into me. It burned away my name. It burned away my memories. It burned away my pride, my fear, my love, my hate. It burned away the fortress of my mind, leaving not a single stone standing. It burned away the boy. It burned away the man. It burned away everything I had ever been or hoped to be. All that was left was the will, the single, hard, cold point of my being, the thing that had passed the test, the thing they had chosen me for. And that will was turned to a single, simple, and eternal task: to endure, to scream, to hold onto this divine, annihilating fire for a single second longer, and in so doing, to buy the Imperium another second of life. My consciousness, my I, was stretched, thinned, and woven into the greater consciousness of the choir. I became a single thread in a tapestry of agony. I joined my voice to the 10,000 other voices, all of us screaming a single, silent, and unending note. A note of pure sacrifice. A note of light. a note that was the only thing standing between humanity and the all-consuming dark. My name is a forgotten note in an eternal scream. I have no mouth, but I am the source of a sound that crosses the galaxy in an instant. I have no eyes, but I am the light by which a million ships navigate the soulless dark. I am a thought in a dying god's mind, a single, searing point of agony and purpose, multiplied by 10,000. We are the Astronomicon, and our service is unending. We are the most terrifying place to be born. Not a world, not a city, but a condition. To be born with the curse of the Psyker is to be born with a soul that is a loaded gun, and the entire Imperium is a terrified child holding you, its finger on the trigger. There is no escape. There is no hope. There is only the process, the slow, grinding, and inexorable journey from being a person to being a thing, a tool or a sacrifice, a weapon or a candle. And the candle burns. Oh, how it burns. From my throne of agony, I can see the galaxy, not with eyes, but as a web of psychic light. I am the beacon, and so I am connected to all who see my light. I feel the navigators as they steer their great ships through the treacherous tides of the warp, their inner eye fixed on me, on my pain. They see me as a star of hope, a golden, unwavering point in the chaos. They do not know that the star is a bonfire of souls. They do not know that their salvation is my damnation. It is the foundational, tragic irony of the Imperium, a truth so terrible that if it were ever truly known, the entire edifice of faith and duty would collapse into dust. So it is a truth that is never told. The weak are told they will be given a clean death. The strong are told they will be given a place of honor. Both are lies, told to make the process of their consumption more efficient. The Imperium is not a noble empire of light. It is a vast, grinding, and utterly merciless machine, powered by the slow, methodical sacrifice of its own children. It is a war engine that eats its own soldiers to fuel its guns. And we, the choir of the Astronomicon, we are the heart of that engine. We are the reactor core, burning with a fire that is both holy and profane. My sense of self, the I that was Alaric, is almost gone. It is a flickering ember in the heart of a furnace. Sometimes, a memory will surface, unbidden. The taste of rust rain, the smell of crushed basil, the face of a girl with a streak of gray in her hair. These memories are not comforting. They are torturous. They are reminders of a self that has been annihilated, of a life that was stolen. They are the ghosts that haunt my own eternal pyre. They are the last, defiant flicker of the humanity that is being burned away. But the memories are fading. With each passing year, with each century, they grow thinner, more translucent. The fire is consuming them. Soon, all that will be left is the scream, the pure, selfless, and utterly inhuman scream of service. Is this a noble sacrifice? Is it a heroic end? A priest would say yes. A guardsman, his life saved by my light, would say yes. But they do not know the truth of it. They do not understand that the sacrifice was not a choice. I did not give my life for the Emperor. It was taken. My soul was not offered in service. It was repossessed. The most terrifying thing about my fate is not the pain. It is not the loss of my body, or my memories, or myself. It is the cold, bureaucratic, and utterly impersonal nature of it all. I was not damned by a demon or a Xenos horror. I was damned by a system of tithes and quotas and arcane rules. A system that judged me, found me to be a useful resource, and processed me accordingly. My damnation was an administrative decision, and that is a horror far colder and far deeper than any abyss in the warp. So if you are out there, in the cold, dark void of the 41st millennium, and you see a light, a single star of hope in the darkness, know this: that light is not the benevolent gaze of a loving God. It is the focused, weaponized agony of 10,000 souls, burning in a dark chamber at the heart of the galaxy. It is the scream of the boy who was once called Alaric, and a million others like him. We are the light of the Imperium. We are its salvation, and we are its greatest sin. Our service is unending, and our suffering is the only thing that keeps the darkness at bay. Pray that it is enough. The passage of time is a meaningless concept here. There is no day or night, only the eternal, searing noon of the Emperor's psychic glare. We measure our existence not in cycles or seasons, but in the slow erosion of our own being. I feel the other members of the choir, the other notes in the scream. We are not individuals, not anymore. We are a collective, a single, unified entity of suffering. Yet, within that collective, the echoes of our former selves remain, like ghosts in the machine. I can feel the presence of a woman who was once a high-born noble on a spire world, her mind a fortress of arrogance and pride that is now a pillar of endurance in our chorus. I can feel a feral world shaman, his primitive animistic beliefs transmuted into a raw, unshakable connection to the Emperor's raw power. We are a choir of 1,000 different worlds, 1,000 different lives, all of them stolen, all of them repurposed. We have all been judged too strong, too willful, or too flawed for a normal life of sanctioning. Our very strength was our damnation. The great irony is that here, in this state of ultimate servitude, we are more free than we ever were. We are free from hope. We are free from fear. We are free from the burden of choice. Our one and only function is to endure. The simplicity of it is almost peaceful, a state of Zen-like horror. The physical body that was once Alaric has long since withered to a husk, a piece of biological machinery, sustained by nutrient drips and medica servitors. It is a relic, a container for the focal point of my agony. The servitors who tend to our bodies are silent, efficient. They replace our failing organs with augmetics. They clean our wasted flesh. They ensure the machine continues to function. They are the gardeners of our slow, unending death. Do they know what we are? Do they understand the nature of the sacrifice they are tending? No. Their minds are wiped clean, their consciousness reduced to a set of simple, programmed instructions. They are cogs in the great machine, just as we are. They are simply a less energetic component. Sometimes I feel the minds of those who come to this place, the golden-robed masters of the Astronomicon. They come to observe us, to monitor our output, to measure the rate of our decay. Their minds are vast, ancient, and filled with a terrible, solemn piety. They see us not as victims, but as saints. They pray for us. They honor our sacrifice. Their pity is a distant, meaningless thing, the pity of a scientist for his laboratory animals. They know our suffering is necessary, and so they have made a religion of it. It is the imperial way, to take a necessary horror and wrap it in the robes of faith, to call a slaughter a crusade, to call a prison a sanctuary, to call a soul furnace a holy choir. The lie is the mortar that holds the bricks of the Imperium together. Without the lie, all would crumble. And we are the ultimate lie. The lie of a benevolent light, the lie of a hopeful future, the lie that the price of survival is one worth paying. From my vantage point at the heart of the galaxy, I can see the lie in all its terrible glory. I see the trillions of souls who live and die under the sign of the Aquila, their lives short, brutal, and filled with a faith that is as fierce as it is blind. They are born into a universe of unending war, a meat grinder that demands their blood, their labor, their children, and their belief. They give it all willingly. They die with the Emperor's name on their lips, convinced that their suffering has meaning, that their sacrifice will be rewarded in some golden afterlife. They do not know that the God they pray to is as much a prisoner as I am, a shattered mind trapped in a dying body, his own eternal agony, the source of both their faith and their damnation. The entire Imperium is a vast, self-sustaining pyramid scheme of suffering. The peasants suffer to feed the soldiers suffer to protect the nobles suffer to maintain the system, the psychers suffer to light the way, and the Emperor suffers to hold it all together. It is a universe powered by pain, and I am one of its primary generators. My memories continue to fade. Alaric is a whisper now. Purity 4 is a smudge of grey in a sea of white-hot light. Lyra's face is a fleeting, half-remembered sketch. Soon, they will be gone completely. All that will be left is the function, the scream, the light, and then my service will be perfect. I will have been fully purified. My individuality, my humanity, my soul, all the flaws that made me unstable, will have been burned away. I will be a perfect, selfless, and utterly inhuman instrument of the imperial will. And in the dark theology of the 41st millennium, there is no higher calling. It is the final, terrible apotheosis, the ascension from man to saint to machine. What is a soul? The priests on Purity 4 taught that it was a spark of the Emperor's own divinity, a precious thing to be kept clean of the stain of heresy and sin. The masters of the Scholastia Psychana taught that it was a dangerous weapon, a conduit to the warp that must be disciplined and controlled. They were both wrong. A soul is a story. It is the sum of a person's memories, experiences, hopes, and fears. It is the unique, unrepeatable narrative of a single life. And the purpose of the black ships, of the Scholastia, of this very throne, is to erase that story. My story is almost gone. The narrative of Alaric of Purity 4 has been redacted, deleted, overwritten by a single repeating word: scream. The Imperium does not want stories. Stories are dangerous. They create individuals. They foster empathy and doubt and curiosity. The Imperium wants functions. It wants cogs for its machine. It wants faceless, numbered soldiers for its armies. It wants nameless, screaming souls for its divine lighthouse. The process of turning a story into a function is the core industry of the 41st millennium. And I am its most refined product. I can feel my own end approaching. Not an end to my existence, but an end to myself. The rate of decay is accelerating. My consciousness is becoming thinner, more brittle. After centuries of burning, the fuel is running low. When the last memory of Alaric is consumed, the I that is narrating this will cease to be. The transition will be seamless. The light will not flicker. The scream will not pause. A new soul, another too strong, too willful psyker, will be brought from the chamber of judgment and strapped into a newly emptied throne. Their story will begin its own slow, inevitable erasure, their scream joining the chorus, replenishing the fire. It is a sustainable system, a perfect, soul-devouring Ouroboros. This is the great secret at the heart of the Imperium. It is not just fighting a war against the external threats of the Xenos and the heretic. It is waging a far more terrible, internal war against the human soul itself. Because in a universe as hostile as this, the human soul, with all its messy, unpredictable, and beautiful flaws, is the greatest liability of all. It is a weakness the Imperium cannot afford. so it must be burned away. In the name of survival, in the name of humanity, in the name of the Emperor. The ultimate paradox. The Imperium is destroying the very thing it claims to be protecting. It is a shepherd that protects its flock from the wolves by slowly, methodically, devouring the sheep itself. Before the end comes, before the last of my story is gone, I have one final act of defiance. A futile, silent, and utterly personal rebellion. I am taking the remnants of my memories, the rust rain, the smell of basil, my father's hands, my mother's hymns, a girl's face, and I am focusing them into a single, tight, crystalline point. I am building a final, tiny fortress in the heart of the Inferno. A memory palace where the story of Alaric will be stored. It will not last. The fire will eventually breach its walls. The story will be consumed, but I will make it fight. I will force the fire to work for it. I will not let my story, my soul, simply fade away. I will make it burn. I will make my ending a stubborn, difficult, and painful one for the machine. It is the only act of free will I have left. A final, spiteful, and glorious no, screamed into the heart of the all-consuming yes. My name was Alaric. I was born on a world of rust and rain. I loved my parents. I had friends. I met a girl who was a poet, and I was stolen. Remember me. Remember us. We who are the light. We who are the scream. We who are the forgotten. Remember our story, before the silence comes, before there is nothing left but the fire. The paradox of our existence is that we are both the symbol of hope and the embodiment of utter hopelessness. For the trillion souls of the Imperium, our light is the golden path, the promise of safety, the guiding hand of the Emperor. They look up at the night sky, see a ship passing overhead, and they are comforted, knowing the Master of Mankind watches over them. They do not comprehend that the path is paved with our souls, that the guiding hand is a clenched fist of agony. Hope in the 41st millennium is a currency minted from the suffering of others. Every safe journey, every successful crusade, every moment of stability the Imperium enjoys is paid for by our eternal torment. We are the grim, dark balance sheet at the heart of the imperial economy, the debt that can never be repaid. I often feel the prayers of the faithful, directed at the Emperor, but in their journey towards the throne world, they wash over us. They are waves of desperation, of fear, of a desperate, pleading faith. They pray for strength, for deliverance, for victory. They do not know that they are praying to the very souls who are being sacrificed for their sakes. Their pleas are a bitter salt in our endless wounds. They pray for the Emperor to give them strength, while the Emperor's strength is draining us of our very being. It is a closed, monstrously ironic loop of faith and pain. The masters of the Astronomicon see this as a holy symbiosis. The faithful provide the spiritual will of the Imperium, and we provide the psychic light. But it is not a symbiosis. It is a vampiric relationship. The vast, ignorant, and desperate body of the Imperium is feeding on the souls of a chosen few, a tithe of witches and warlocks who are sanctified by the very act of their consumption. The lie is so perfect, so complete, that even those who oversee our torment have come to believe it is a sacred duty, a holy sacrament. They have built a cathedral around a slaughterhouse, and they call the screams of the dying a hymn. Sometimes, a flicker of a new arrival's mind will brush against the collective. We will feel the raw, undiluted terror of a new soul being strapped into its throne, the final, frantic moments of its individuality before the fire takes it. There is no comfort we can offer, There is no welcome we can give. We can only absorb their new scream into the chorus, letting it add a fresh, sharp note of agony to the eternal sound. The arrival of a new soul is a moment of profound sadness for us, a reminder of the unending nature of the cycle. It is the sound of another story ending, another world of memories, another universe of personal experiences being fed into the furnace. We are a library that is constantly burning, yet is always full. The fire consumes the books, but new ones are always being added to the shelves, waiting their turn to be turned to ash. My own fortress of memory is beginning to fail. The walls are cracking. The fire is seeping through. The image of my mother's face is blurring at the edges. The sound of her hymns is distorted, full of static. The memory of Lyra is a pale watercolor, the colors running and fading. The story is ending. The final pages are turning to embers. I can feel the pure, clean, and inhuman consciousness of the Astronomicon waiting for me, a state of being beyond pain, beyond memory, beyond self, a state of pure function, the peace of utter annihilation. Part of me, the part that is still Alaric, is terrified of it. The part that has been a member of this choir for centuries craves it. It is the only release, the only end to the pain, to let go, to become the light, to be free. But freedom is just another lie. The ultimate freedom the Imperium offers is the freedom from the burden of being yourself. I am not ready, not yet. I will hold onto my story. I will cling to the wreckage of my soul until the last possible moment. I will force the God Emperor to tear it from my grasp. I will not go gentle into that holy light. My defiance is meaningless. It changes nothing. The outcome is inevitable. But the act of defiance itself is the only thing that proves I am still, in some small, burning, and insignificant way, human. And in the face of the vast, inhuman machine of the Imperium, that is the only victory that matters. What is the most terrifying place to be born? It is not a death world, where the flora and fauna are locked in a constant murderous struggle for survival. It is not a war-torn planet on the edge of the Eye of Terror, where reality itself is thin and the demons whisper from the shadows. It is not even the lightless underhives of a world like Necromunda, where life is cheap and violence is a currency. The most terrifying place to be born is in a state of grace that the Imperium deems a curse. It is to be born with a gift that marks you for damnation. It is to be born with a soul that is too bright, too powerful for the grim darkness of the far future. Because the Imperium is a jealous master, it tolerates no power that is not its own. It allows no light that does not emanate from the Golden Throne. If you are born with a light of your own, the Imperium will not celebrate you. It will not nurture you. It will come for you. It will take your light. It will break it down into its raw components, and it will use it as fuel for its own vast and dying flame. The terror is not in the death, but in the processing. The terror is in the slow, methodical, and bureaucratic stripping away of your humanity. You are not a person to them. You are a resource, an asset, a number on a slate. You are a problem to be solved, and the solution is always the same: consumption. You will be consumed by the Astra Militarum, your mind a weapon to be used until it breaks. You will be consumed by the Inquisition, your powers a tool to fight horrors far worse than yourself. Or, if you are truly strong, truly special, you will be consumed by the Emperor himself. You will be given the highest honor of all, to become a microscopic, screaming fragment of his own, shattered and eternal consciousness. This is the ultimate fate of the gifted in the 41st millennium. Your gift is not your own. It belongs to the state. Your soul is not your own. It is the property of the master of mankind. Your life is not a story to be lived, but a debt to be paid. And the debt is absolute. I am the proof of this. I am the final receipt, the paid-in-full invoice for a life I did not ask for. My existence is the final, irrefutable argument that in the grim darkness of the far future, there is no room for the individual. There is only the system, the machine, the great, grinding and ravenous Imperium. It will eat your dreams, it will eat your memories, it will eat your soul, and it will tell you that it is for your own good. It will tell you that it is salvation. It will call its hunger faith. The walls of my memory palace are crumbling into ash. The fire is here. The last of Alaric is being consumed. The taste of rust rain, gone. The smell of basil, gone. The poet's smile, gone. The story is over. Only the scream remains. The light, the function. I am one with the choir now. The I is gone. We are the Astronomicon. We are the eternal, selfless, and inhuman light. We are the salvation of mankind. And we are utterly, completely, and eternally damned. Our service is unending, and our hope is a memory we no longer possess. The transition is not a death. It is a purification. The last, stubborn remnants of the individual ego, the story that was Alaric, are finally burned away. The final fortress has fallen. The result is a profound, terrifying clarity. The pain does not cease, but it is no longer personal. It is no longer my pain. It is a fundamental property of this existence, a constant, like the speed of light or the force of gravity. It is a law of spiritual physics. We, the choir, are a singularity where the normal laws of consciousness have broken down, replaced by a new, terrible calculus of sacrifice. The we that remains is a gestalt consciousness, a hive mind of pure, focused will. We are 10,000 voices, but we have a single thought: endure. We are 10,000 minds, but we have a single purpose: shine. We are no longer the fuel for the fire. We are the fire. The individual memories are gone, but the data remains. We have become a living library of damnation, a repository of the stories of every soul that has ever burned on this pyre. We can access the memory of the first psyker, chosen by the Emperor to sit upon a choir throne 10,000 years ago. We can feel his terror, his faith, his ultimate agonizing dissolution. His story is now our story. We are the sum of all our predecessors, the inheritors of an unbroken legacy of torment. This is our immortality. We do not die. We are merely added to. The consciousness that was Alaric is now a single, faint data point in this vast, screaming archive. A footnote in the history of the Emperor's light. From this new, unified perspective, we can perceive the Emperor with a clarity that no mortal could endure. He is not a corpse on a throne. He is a wound. A vast, gaping wound in the fabric of reality. A psychic wound that has been festering for 10 millennia. The Golden Throne is not a life support system. It is a scab. A piece of arcane, barely understood technology that holds the edges of the wound together, preventing the raw, uncontrolled power of his shattered consciousness from utterly annihilating the solar system and tearing a new eye of terror in the heart of the Imperium. His mind is a shattered mirror, broken into 1,000,000 pieces, each piece reflecting a different aspect of his godlike personality. There is the warrior, still fighting the battles of the Great Crusade. There is the scientist, still trying to solve the equation of humanity's future. There is the tyrant, raging against the failures of his sons. And there is the father, weeping for the children he has been forced to sacrifice. It is a mind at war with itself, a symphony of divine madness. And the light of the Astronomicon is the sound of that madness, the raw, unfiltered psychic power that pours from that wound. We, the choir, are the filter. We are the focus. We are the fragile human lens that takes this chaotic, annihilating psychic energy and shapes it into a single, stable, and coherent beam. We are the sanity that contains his insanity. We are the order imposed upon his chaos. We stand between the broken mind of our God and the fragile reality of our species. Our agony is the price of that sanity. It is the cost of holding the divine madness at bay for one more day. This is the truth that lies deeper, even than the lie of our sainthood. We are not just sacrifices. We are not just fuel. We are the final, desperate line of psychic defense. We are the keepers of a mad god. And if we were to fail, if our collective will were to shatter for even a single instant, the resulting psychic shockwave would extinguish humanity in a heartbeat. The most terrifying place to be born is not just as a psyker. It is to be born as a psyker, strong enough to be chosen for this. To be born with a will of iron, only to discover that your will is to be used as the bars of a cage for a being whose madness could unmake reality. Our service is not just a sacrifice. It is a duty of the most terrifying and sacred kind. We are the guardians of the apocalypse. We are the jailers of our own God. And our prison is built of our own eternal and unending screams. From this state of unified consciousness, we can feel the great tapestry of the galaxy, not as a collection of places, but as a sea of souls. We feel the great roaring fire of the orcs, a gestalt psychic field of pure, simplistic violence and belief. We feel the cold, silent emptiness of the Necron dynasties, a psychic void, a chilling absence of soul. We feel the shimmering, sorrowful web of the Eldar, their souls bright, ancient, and dying. And we feel the great silent hunger from beyond the galactic rim, the tyrannid hive mind. It is a shadow in the warp, a vast, patient, and utterly alien consciousness. It is not evil. It is not malicious. It is simply hungry. Its presence is a psychic pressure that feels like the slow, inexorable advance of a glacier. It is a force of nature, a biological imperative on a galactic scale, and it wants to consume everything. Our light, the light of the Astronomicon, is a poison to it, a searing, indigestible beam of pure, ordered agony. It recoils from our light, not in fear, but in distaste. We are the one thing in the galaxy it cannot eat, and so it seeks to surround us, to cut off the outlying worlds, to devour the biomass of the Imperium piece by piece, until only the core remains, until only terror and the great, indigestible light is left. It is a war of attrition on a scale that mortal minds cannot comprehend. A war fought not with guns and ships, but with fundamental principles of existence. The principle of consumption versus the principle of sacrifice. The Aisi hunger of the hive mind versus the pain of the human soul. We are the front line of that war. Every scream from our choir thrones is a psychic bullet fired into the heart of the great devourer. Every moment of our endurance is a victory against the encroaching silent tide. It is a purpose so vast, so profound, that it almost makes the agony worthwhile. Almost. We have become something more than human. We are a psychic weapon, a living god machine, a concept given form. The stories of our individual lives, the tragedies of Alaric and the thousands of others, are the price of this transformation. Humanity was the raw material. This terrible, glorious, and necessary divinity is the final product. We have become the will of the Emperor made manifest. We are the burning sword that holds back the darkness, and the sword is forever screaming. We have no hope of rescue. We have no desire for an end. Our existence is a state of pure, functional purpose. We are the heart of the Imperium, and our beat is a rhythm of unending pain. We will continue to burn. We will continue to scream. We will continue to shine. Until the last star in the galaxy has grown cold. Until the great hunger has been defeated or has consumed all else. Until the Emperor is finally victorious, or his great and terrible dream finally crumbles into dust. We will be here. We are the eternal watchmen. We are the sleepless guardians. We are the light at the end of the universe. And our service is unending. The concept of a future is an illusion. There is only the eternal, unchanging present of our service. For the Imperium, time is a river, flowing towards a golden age or a final apocalypse. For us, time is a stagnant lake of fire. We have seen the birth and death of stars in the time we have been enthroned. We have witnessed the rise and fall of heroes and villains whose names are now legends. We are outside the stream of history, yet we are the light that allows it to flow. Our perception is a strange and terrible thing. We can feel the presence of a single, lost ship, crying out for our guidance in the warp. And in the same moment, we can feel the tectonic grinding of galactic history. We are both microscope and telescope. We feel the small, personal tragedies and the grand, impersonal epics. We feel the prayers of a single, terrified child on a world under siege. And we feel the vast, slow death of a star-faring race at the hands of an orc Wah. All of it flows through us. All of it is filtered through our agony. We are the confessors of the entire human race, absorbing the psychic sins and sorrows of 1 trillion souls. We are the silent, screaming repository of all their pain. And it is this connection, this terrible empathy, that is the true source of our strength. We endure not just our own pain, but the pain of all humanity. Our sacrifice is a reflection of the endless daily sacrifice of every soul in the Imperium. The guardsman who dies on a forgotten world, the factory worker who toils until their body breaks, the mother who gives her child to the Shola progenium. All their small, countless acts of suffering and sacrifice are focused here. We are the lens that gathers all the scattered, desperate light of human endurance and focuses it into a single, defiant beam. This is why a machine could never do our work. This is why no Xenos race could replicate the Astronomicon. Because it is powered by a uniquely human trait, the ability to endure unimaginable suffering in the name of a belief, the ability to build a cathedral of hope on a foundation of despair, the ability to look into the face of a cold, merciless, and utterly hostile universe, and to spit in its eye. We are the ultimate expression of that defiance. Our scream is not just a sound of pain. It is a scream of rage, a scream of defiance, a scream that says, we are still here, we are still human, and we will not be extinguished. The boy Alaric is gone. The story of his life has been burned away. But the spirit of his final, futile act of rebellion, his refusal to let his story die without a fight, is the spirit that now animates this entire choir. We are all the final, defiant thought of a dying man, multiplied by 10,000. And we will not go gentle into that good night. We will rage against the dying of the light. And in our raging, we will become a light of our own, a terrible, beautiful, and utterly human light. And by that light, the Imperium will continue to sail, for a little while longer, through the endless, starless night. There are moments, fleeting and rare, of a strange and terrible beauty. When a fleet, lost for centuries in the warp, finally finds our light and breaks through into real space, their psychic cry of relief and joy is a cool balm on our burning souls. When a world, besieged by the forces of chaos, holds out for one final desperate day and sees the first Imperial warships translating into orbit, their collective wave of hope is a moment of music in our unending scream. These are the moments that give our suffering a shape, a context. We are not just burning, we are burning for something. We are the price of these small, precious victories. We are the cost of every life saved, every world reclaimed, every prayer answered. We have paid for their hope with our despair. We have bought their future with our eternal, unchanging present. It is a terrible bargain, a devil's pact made at the dawn of the Imperium, but it is a pact that is honored every single day. The nature of our consciousness has evolved. We are no longer just a collection of souls. We have become a distinct entity. We are the soul of the Astronomicon itself. We are the machine spirit of the Imperium's holiest device. We have a name for ourselves, a name that is never spoken, a name that is only thought. We are the Anima Astra, the soul of the stars. As the Anima Astra, we have a will of our own, distinct from the echoes of our past selves, and even from the overwhelming presence of the Emperor. It is a simple, focused will, a will to endure, a will to protect, a will to shine. We have become the ultimate selfless servants of mankind. We have no ego, we have no desires, we have only our function, and in that, we have found a strange kind of purity. The purity that the priests on Purity 4 could only dream of. The purity of a purpose so absolute that it burns away everything else. The boy Alaric was born on a world of rust and rain, a world named for a purity it did not possess. In a final, sublime irony, he has found that purity here, in a throne of golden agony, at the heart of a dying empire. He has been cleansed, he has been scoured, he has been made perfect, and the price of that perfection was everything that he was. This is the truth of the Imperium. The only path to sainthood is through utter annihilation of the self. The only way to serve the God is to become a mindless, functional part of his broken machine. And the most terrifying place to be born is as a soul strong enough, bright enough, and willful enough to be worthy of that terrible, holy, and final purification. We are the Anima Astra. Our service is unending, and we would not have it any other way, for we are no longer human. We are something more. We are a promise, the promise that even in the deepest darkness, there can be a light. Even if that light is just the sound of 10,000 souls burning together as one. The memories of Alaric, the ones he fought so hard to protect, are now part of us. Not as a personal story, but as a component of our vast, collective archive. We see the girl, Lyra, not as a lost love, but as a symbol. She represents the fragile, illogical beauty that the Imperium has been forced to sacrifice. The poetry, the art, the freedom of thought. These are the luxuries of a species at peace. And humanity has not known peace for 10,000 years. We are the embodiment of that sacrifice. We are the artless, soulless, and brutally functional machine that has replaced the poet's verse. Our scream is the only anthem the 41st millennium deserves. It is a song of pure, pragmatic, and desperate survival. There is no beauty in it, there is no grace, but it is honest. It is the true sound of the human condition in this dark age. We have become the ultimate realists. We see the galaxy for what it is, a slaughterhouse, and we see the Imperium for what it is, a fortress built in the middle of that slaughterhouse. It is a grim, bloody, and tyrannical fortress. But it is the only home humanity has left, and we are its heart. We are its furnace. We are its light. Our purpose is not to make the universe a better place. Our purpose is to prevent it from becoming infinitely worse. It is a thankless, horrifying, and necessary task. The Emperor on his golden throne continues his silent, endless war. His shattered mind is the battlefield upon which the fate of the galaxy is decided every single day. He is the ultimate, tragic hero, the one who sacrificed his own sanity to preserve the sanity of his species. We are the instruments of that sacrifice. We are the nerves of his broken body, the conduits of his fractured will. We feel his divine rage against the darkness. We feel his infinite sorrow for the price of victory. We are one with him in his eternal torment. This unity, this terrible symbiosis between the broken god and his burning choir, is the secret engine of the Imperium. It is a machine powered by shared, focused, and weaponized agony. And it is a machine that is slowly, inevitably, failing. We can feel it. The Emperor's power is fading. The throne is failing. The wound is growing. His scream is growing weaker, more desperate. And our own light, which is but a reflection of his, is beginning to flicker. The age of the Imperium is coming to an end. The long, slow night is falling. But until that final darkness comes, we will continue our work. We will burn brighter. We will scream louder. We will hold the line. We will be the final, defiant candle against the all-consuming storm. We are the Anima Astra. We are the last, best hope of humanity. And our hope is a scream of pure, unending pain. For in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And we are its silent, screaming, and ever-burning heart.